Hello, MA Today. Um, I've done several iterations of this video and I keep having to start over because I keep missing something. So this is going to be as short and as fast as I possibly can make this intro montage. I'm going to provide some links down below that key you into the other parts of the video that I'm going through fastly if you need to go through them in more in depth. So for example, if you need to keyframe something and you need more practice of that, there's a longer video down here in the description. So our goal here today is to review Premiere. That's the whole point of this project. And so that we have this new intro that helps make the show yours rather than like mine, right? So that's our goal here today. So the first thing you got to do is you got to make sure you get some songs and you got to make sure you get some visual assets. If you go to Canvas and you look up the assignment, new intro montage, I have some video for you if you'd like to use it. Or you can do Google image searches. When you do a Google image search, make sure you grab the large image. So when you click on an image that you like this one with the coach, make sure the image is done loading and make sure it has this like resolution or aspect ratio right here that's rather large. You can right click and choose save link as, or excuse me, save image as. Sorry, right click and use save image as. They're going to wind up in your downloads folder. You're going to want to move everything into a folder on your desktop so it's all in one place. So that way you can quickly and easily find it. Okay? So with that being set, make sure you take a moment, you go ahead and pause this video, download a song. You can download that song from YouTubeAudioLibrary.com or ytmp3.cc. Lets you copy and paste a link from any song you want. Just make sure you have about 12 to 30 seconds of a song with no lyrics. So our intro montage is going to be about 12 to 30 seconds. Okay? So here we go for the next part. Boom. All right. Now that you have your songs and your video assets, you want to make a new project. So you open up Premiere and you hit New Project, and you're going to call it Intro Montage 5. I think I haven't done more than 5 yet. Good. Here's our project layout for our thing. Next thing you want to do is you want to put media into your lower left-hand corner, your project window. If you have a large enough screen, you can just grab that folder where you've downloaded everything and you can drag and drop. Or if you don't have that, you can go up top to where it says File, choose Import or Control-I or Command-I, find that folder on your desktop or wherever you're saving it, and select everything by clicking one, scrolling down, Shift, click on the last one, and hit Import. If you get an error message for 1 or 2, that means it can't read that file, but hopefully you have enough. You're going to need about 12 different shots. So now that we have everything in our project window, we want to start with a sequence. So I'm going to go up top here to hit File, New, Sequence. File, New, Sequence. There's a hotkey, Control key, or Command key. I'm just going to call it Rough Cut because this might evolve, and I'm going to hit OK. Now, we want to start with a song. Okay, the song is going to be our decision makers. Because we're starting with a song, and because we're using different pictures. If you notice, this picture is rather square. This picture is rather long. So they have different aspect ratios and different resolutions. And they're all very different because we grabbed them off of the internet. So we want to have a nice consistent frame for our sequence or our movie. The best thing we get to do for that is to change your settings before you do anything else. So I'm going to right click, or no, not right click, I'm sorry. I'm going to go right up here to Sequence. I'm going to choose Sequence Settings. If it is grayed out, I'm going to click on my sequence up over here, boop, and make sure that my sequence is selected. Now when I go up top, Sequence, Sequence Settings. All right. In Canvas, I have provided a JPEG of all the settings you should change, starting with editing mode and going down. So if I go too fast, you can refer to Canvas or just rewind. All right. So up here where it says editing mode, I'm going to click on this drop-down menu and scroll up. So you don't really see custom until you scroll up. And make sure you choose custom, 29.97. Frame size is 720. Horizontal is 480. We want to change that to 1280 and 720. These are all in that JPEG. I can also go square pixel, progressive scan, and that's it. I'm going to hit OK. Bam. Now I have my sequence set to where I want, and now whatever picture happens, it's going to make it fit to this window size. Normally in other projects, we've started with our footage. This time we're starting with our song. So I'm going to scroll and find a song, and I'm going to use the one that said like Brooklyn. There it is, Brooklyn in the blah, blah, blah. If I have markers, just ignore me for a second. I'm going to go mark, and I'm going to clear all my markers because that's something we're going to be doing. All right, so here's my song. You don't have to use the whole song. This song is 2 minutes and 18 seconds long. I only need like 20 seconds of it. I kind of like the way the ending's looking, so I'm just going to go here, and I've already listened to it, but I'm going to press I for in. So that's where I want the song to start. Normally I'd scan through, listen through this more. And then I could press O at the end if I wanted to, or the O is already set to kind of be a default. So that's my out point. That's 23 seconds long. That's about the right amount of time. To plop this into your timeline, I can do a couple things. I can press period, or I can grab this little audio waveform right here. It says drag the audio only. You can't drag the audio from here. Unlike our video files, which you can grab the picture, you can't do that with audio. So I have to drag this tiny little audio file. I'm going to pull it down into track 1. Now, a lot of you have noticed that the clip is very, very small. It's only 20 seconds, and our timeline over here is 4 minutes, right? So to make this kind of fill out the entire sequence, I could zoom in and zoom out with this little slider right here, right? Or I can press the / button above the enter key, boop, right? And that stretches out my timeline so that it fills the whole sequence. That's the / right above the return key or enter key right there. Okay. The next step is that my waveforms are really, really, really small. Okay. So I can pull this little tiny skinny line right here. I can pull down. It becomes much larger, right? And I really want to see those waveforms. I want to make sure that's nice and big because that's going to be giving me some decisions. All right. Next thing I want to do before I do anything else, I want to just make sure it's fading in right and fading out right. So I'm just going to give it a listen, and let's see. I want it to start right where it goes bump, bump, bump. I want it to be right there. So I'm actually going to trim it a little bit. So the first thing you hear is bump. Let's see now. That's good. If I wanted to, I can kind of fade it in because there's that one little piano, but I'm not going to bother. And then this fading out, just to make sure. Good. That's where I want MA Today to kind of zoom out. That's where the text is going to kind of flash out. All right. One thing I was encouraging students to do is to kind of mark the songs. You can mark a song by pressing M. So it's kind of like Guitar Hero. You just press M on your keyboard, just plain M. And so I'm going to highlight it, double click it so it's selected. And when I listen to it and I press M, bump. Okay? I didn't press M. Let me go back. Bump, bump. M. Bump, 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 bump. M. Bump, 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 bump. M. Bump, 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 bump. M. All right. So those are like every fourth beat, right? That's where the measure changes, if you know music. The other thing is I didn't mark these tiny little spots, the bump, 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 but I'm going to use those as well. So what I did was I marked the big places. So I'm going to have these long stretches of videos and then a short where it has the staccato parts, the bump, 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 bump. I'm going to change really fast. And I want you to think about this for your montage, right? This is going to drive your decisions. All right. So I got my thing here. I'm going to zoom in even more. I can zoom in even more by hitting this little slider down here. Or what you also see me do is I press Z, and zoom lets me kind of click in. And if I hit Alt-Z, it lets me click out. So zooming in with Z is a little fast way, and then I have to go back to my arrow by pressing V. So you've seen me do that in class a few times. All right, my song's in play. Next, I'm going to find a video. So I want the video to start with like the door opening, right? It's a good metaphor for the whole show starting, right? The door opening is the beginning of the show, right? So here's my video of the door opening. And so I'm going to get my clip, double click it, so it's in my left-hand side. I don't need the whole clip. I don't need all this of him waiting. I don't need him walking out and seeing his reflection. I just need him swinging through the door. So I'm going to go right here, right where the door opens. And right where he walks, passes through. O, right? Now, that is, this little gray number tells me how long it is. 2 seconds, 2 seconds and 44 frames, okay? Now, down here, I'm going to press I, and I'm going to listen. Bump, 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 right there. Right where that bump hits, I want it to switch to something else. So I'm going to press O, right? Maybe even a little shorter. Bump, 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 bump. Right there. Okay? I'm choosing this because it's a good sequence to show. So let me just show you here. My footage is 59 frames per second. My sequence is 29 frames per second. So there is a little discrepancy here. But my in and out point is 2 seconds. 1 second, 29 frames. That's about 2 seconds, right? My footage here is almost 3 seconds, okay? So I have an in and out point and an in and out point. I either have to trim something, right? I either have to go through and trim something. Oops, I pressed the wrong button. I-O. There you go, right? So there's a discrepancy on which one's longer, okay? So this is almost 2 seconds. There's a little bit of a mismatch in time. When you have that, when you have 4 points, an in and out in your sequence and an in and out in your timeline, you have to either ignore one of them, either ignore the sources, ignore the sequences, or you can squeeze it. You can either make it go faster or slower. So I can take this picture here and plop it into overwrite. Here I have 4 different options. I have change the speed, or I have ignore in or ignore out, right, for sequence of it. So I want to change the speed. So it's going to go a little bit faster to squeeze it in this timeline. And whoops, I messed up. Right? So what happened there was I fed the audio, you heard the door squeak open. I fed the audio to overwrite the music. To prevent this, we're going to do 2 things. Because we want this song and because we don't need any audio from the footage, we're going to disconnect our audio right here, this audio source patching. So to the left of this little lock on our timeline, I'm going to click on that blue box, click on the blue box, and it becomes black, right? One more thing, because I've my song's already leveled, it's all set, it's all trimmed, I've laid out my song, just so no harm comes to it, I'm also going to lock it. I can always unlock it later, but I'm going to lock it, so I've doubly protected it, right? I'm not going to grab my audio from my music ever, from my footage ever, and then I've also locked it in case I slip and slide around. Okay, so now I have this, I'm going to drag it in and hit overwrite, I'm going to say fit to fill, and choose OK. And now, right, and it cuts right at that bump, okay? So now I'm going to pick another shot. So I'm going to go back to the beginning here, the end of the next list, I'm going to press I, and then bump, and then right here, O, I'm going to have another short clip. Now, all of our little selections and clips are going to be really super short. It's an intro. It's supposed to be really fast. It's going to be a montage. Your audience isn't going to pick up on every visual cue you have every time, but that's cool because they're going to see it over and over again because it's the same intro to our show. So let's see. I have a student walking through the library. Let's remind them as to where we're looking at. So let's throw in this shot of our little strength and diversity. I'm going to use the close-up one later, but let's do this one now. Is there any movement? No, it's a very static shot. So if there's no movement, you can just press I and throw it into overwrite, and notice it cut it off. So if I have an in and out point on my timeline, like I just did, in, out, all I need is either an in or an out in my project window. So it's called 3-point editing for that reason, because you only need 3, okay? The 4th one lets you stretch or speed up if you want to make sure that that entire clip gets into your sequence. So I hit overwrite, and now I have my second shot in there. I'm going to move these up so you can see the thumbnail. Now here comes the fun part, right? I have this nice little staccato part to the song. The bump, 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 bump. It would be fun to flash 1, 2, 3, 4 different shots, right? And that 4th one be a little bit longer. So I'm going to press I right here. I might scoot it back 1 frame. I, because I think I was late. Right? Bump. And then that next one's coming in. O. Notice I didn't mark it. I'm just using the waveforms. You could go through and mark it if you want, if that's easier. All right. I'm going to go and I'm going to add another picture. Now, when they're pictures, you don't really need an in and out point. So I'm just going to take this, throw it into overwrite, and just ignore my source in point. Boom. You can ignore your source out point. Once again, I'm going to hit I, and then go to this next little beat dump O. Grab another shot. So there's the us, then there's going to be, let's do, I just want to get pictures. Let's do this one here. Just throw that in, overwrite, and again, ignore. If it comes up, boom, I got another little piece. One more time. I, and then bump. Oh, so I'm flashing 3 pictures. Bump, 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 bump. Let's use our guidance counselors. That's a good one. Throw it in, overwrite. Go ahead and ignore source. Boom. So now it looks like good, right? And then this last one will be another video. So I'll make another video clip right here. I and O. Now you might have noticed the pictures were a little bit off. We're going to fix that in a second. Let's see. I'm going to grab probably the bear. Is the bear? Oh, I wish I had a zoom of the bear. Do any of these moving around? Let's see. None of these have a lot of movement. What has some movement? Let's go to the G-wing. Where's the G-wing? There it is. It's the kid on the balcony on the G-wing. So, and there's a zoom. So zoom out, and then they zoom back in, and I'm going to do the second zoom out. So I'm going to go. Got a picture of him nice and close, and right when it starts, the camera starts to move out. So I'm going to press I, and the camera starts to zoom out to about right. I never want it to stop zooming. I always want to keep them. Oh, that's a 5-second clip. I know that because of this gray number, and this is a 1.5-second clip. I'm going to grab this image. I'm going to drag it into overwrite, and I'm going to choose fit to fill. So it's going to be really fast now. So now when I look at it, there you go. Okay. Now, well, let's finish this off. So I still want I'm 6 seconds in. So just really quickly, I'm going to do just a few more shots. Okay. So in a moment, I'm going to have this whole thing filled out. Bing! Through the magic of movie editing, I have now finished my timeline. Everything is in reasonable timing with the music. I'm going to show you how to fine-tune that next. The other thing you're going to notice is as you've been putting stuff in, you've probably noticed that the pictures are all a little different. Okay? The quick shortcut to that is to right-click on your pictures with your arrow tool here. If you right-click on each one and you choose Scale Frame to Size. Did you miss that? I'm going to right-click. And choose Scale Frame to Size. Right? One more time. Right-click. Scale Frame to Size. Each video. So now they're filling up there. So the video here is 1080. The sequence is 720. So we want to right-click, Scale Frame to Size. And it shrinks those back. So it goes either way. It either makes things bigger or smaller. To put in your sequence the right way. There is an auto setup for this, but we'll look into that later. So I'm going to right click and choose Scale Frame to Size. And now I got a couple more things. Right click. All right, and again, so just let me do this real quick through the power of editing. And bing! And now I have every single picture either scaled up or scaled down so that it all fits pretty well. All right, now let's listen and watch for a second. You're going to notice that some of these are off time just a little bit. So let's see how we did. Bam. That's not bad. That first sequence ain't bad. That one's way off. Okay. So, what has happened is that some of these are just a little off because of their in and out points, and that's okay. You're not gonna hit it perfectly out of the park every time. So what you want to do is you want to zoom in. So again, you hit Z and you zoom in, and then you hit V to go back to your arrow, right? And you want to zoom in on the part where you know you had a problem. So I believe it's going to be right here. That was okay. Let's try that again. This one's a little late right here, right? And you can even see it. The cut for is right here and the waveform's right there, okay? Now, I could use my arrow, and I can go one over and then drag the other one. And so that totally works. You can use your arrow. There's another way that usually goes faster. So what I like to do is I like to do a pass with what I call the rolling edit tool. So if you click on 1, 2, 3 on your toolbar down, and you click and you hold and you choose rolling edit, you have these seams here. And so I can just kind of move each seam to where that waveform is. So it looks like they're a little off. This one was way off, right? And so instead, it has to be on the seam where two clips are meeting each other. So I can just kind of go through each seam and just kind of see if they're lining up with a beat on the waveform, and I can just kind of double check that. And my little helper is kind of blocking with that little yellow thing, so I'm just going to I'm moving stuff out of the way so when I hit shift, you can kind of see what I'm looking at. That one seems okay. That one seems okay. So they're all kind of lined up, right? This is lined up right where that beat is. I'm just looking. This one a little late, so I'm going to make that a little earlier. And then this one is a little late, so I'm going to make that one a little earlier. So I'm just lining up all my timing just so they match up. This is called the rolling edit tool. The hotkey for it is just plain old N, which I don't know if it makes sense for you to remember, but rolling edit. All right, and just one more there. Oop, there you go. And this is the one that was really off. Yeah, so instead of it saves you some clicks instead of using your arrow tool. And I'm just trying to match up these to the beats just to kind of see. There you go. All right, let's see if it looks better now. I'm gonna hit save and make this a little bit smaller. Let's see how we did. Nice. Crisp. That's the crisp you want. Good. That's all we need. All right. So rolling edit is tremendous. In class, I showed you this other thing called the slip tool, which is good to kind of fine tune the in and the out point. So I want him walking off frame right when we cut. And then this is going to fade in. So it's okay that we see a closed door for a second. And then I want right the second that he gets off frame, it cuts. So slip is a little different. It lets you adjust the in and the out point. But the really important one that's going to save you a lot of time is called rolling. So I covered both those in class. If you don't get slip, don't worry about it. All right. Next comes keyframing. Now, when you have static images, it's really important to kind of have some sort of movement to them. It doesn't have to be a lot. A little goes a long way. But it's really important to kind of have some sort of movement. Now, we also have the added bonus that these clips are being shown really fast, but just keyframing them a little bit more is really going to help. So let's start with the last picture because that picture's on for a long time, right? So I want this picture to kind of be there for a while because it's graduation. It's the ultimate goal. So bump, bump, bump. And then that's where MA today is going to fade in, and then this is going to fade out. So I'm going to make this picture, I just wanted to trim it a little bit more. This will eventually fade out. So this picture, let's learn how to keyframe. Okay, so now with keyframing, I'm going to double click on the picture I want. There's two really important parts to keyframing. One is to always be very aware of where your scrubber is. That's the blue vertical line. Be very aware of where that is. So I want to get that at the very first frame of that picture. I'm also going to double click, and now I know that this picture is up here in my effects control panel. Okay, so now I'm going to grab this, and now I'm going to select Effect Controls. That's right up here. All right. My scrubber is at the beginning. I have two things I really want to pay attention for this sort of montage sequence. Position and scale. I want it to start at a certain level, and I want it to finish at a certain level. So right now I still have it, the picture's a slightly different aspect ratio, so I still want it to zoom in. So before I even hit the stopwatch, I'm going to zoom in because I want to get rid of those black bars. I don't even want it to start with those black bars. That's a good starting point, right? Actually, I'm going to do the reverse. I'm going to have it zoom in. So I'm going to zoom in right here so you can see all their faces. And then I got to move it down. So what I'm doing here is I'm left clicking on these numbers to kind of put everything in a good position. Okay. Now, my frame, my my scrubber is at the very first frame of this clip. I've got it to where I want it to start. So I want it starting on these faces, and then I'm going to have it zoom out. So I'm going to click on the stopwatch for position and scale. And now I'm going to pull my scrubber over to the right, to the very end of that clip. And I can also hit down arrow and left to be at that last frame. And now where it says scale, I'm going to left click and hold and pull it out. I can also type in like 112 or 125, something about right there. And I have this black bar up top. So I want to make sure I change my position. So again, I left click and hold so that it's in a good position, right? Now, most students, they keep hitting the blue stop. You only have to hit the stopwatch once. Once you hit the stopwatch, it records every move. I can see all my keyframes with these dots here. So I can always kind of move these around to kind of change where they're going to be zoomed in or zoomed out if I needed to adjust them. If I wanted to delete them, I can click on them and press delete. But I don't want to do that. So now it zooms. It has a nice slow zoom out. So with every single picture, it'd be nice to have a little bit of a movement with these pictures. So again, here it is on bears. It'd be fun to do a zoom out here. So I'm going to repeat everything, but it's going to go a lot faster because it's only a second long, a half second. Double clicked. I put my scrubber at the very beginning. I'm going to hit effect controls and I hit position, scale. And then I move my scrubber to the last frame of that. Left arrow, right arrow helps you go frame by frame. And I'm going to zoom in on the bears. So this one I'm doing a zoom in rather than a zoom out. Right? Something like that. Just a little. A little goes a long way. Okay, when I have a nice long shot like this, a nice wide shot, it's nice to kind of zoom it in. So I'm going to scale it so then the black bars are gone. I'm going to move it up. This is from our musical, right? Right about there. And now I'm going to move my scrubber to the beginning. Notice I haven't hit the stopwatch yet. Right there. Now I'm going to hit position and scale, and I'm going to slide it over to the left. Right about there. I'm going to go to the end of that clip. And I'm going to move it over to the right. And so every static picture should have some sort of movement. It just really helps the dynamicism of your whole sequence, right? If you're just looking at static pictures, you're looking at a slideshow. But if they're moving, now you're watching a video. So once again, with this one, I'm going to start as a close-up on the coach here. Effect controls, get scale, and go position and something like that. And then I'm going to go to the end, last frame, and I'm going to zoom it out just a little. Oop, I forgot to hit stopwatch. That's the important part. So I was going fast because I was trying to speed up here. So I'm at my very first frame. I'm where I want it to be, maybe a little closer. It's a cool shot. I'm going to hit scale position. I'm going to go to my last frame now. So you're constantly clicking between your sequence and your project window here. And let's say I'm going to zoom it out just a little bit. And that makes me have to move it. So just a little bit of a zoom out. A little bit of animation goes a long way. All right. All right, so let's see how that, and then this, if it's video and the video is moving, you don't really have to keyframe it. So let's see how this looks, just a little bit. Nice, that's fast. And that's fine that it's fast because it's an intro. Okay, so now with the magic of editing, I'm going to go through and keyframe every single one of my pictures. So go ahead and do that using the stopwatch and being conscious of where you're keyframing. Bing! All right, so through the magic of editing, I have gone through and I've keyframed everything. As you start doing all of these things, you're going to notice that this comes yellow and might even become red. What you're going to want to do from time to time is save it, Command S or Control S, or File, save your scenes. The other thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to render. So one more thing you can do is up top where it says Sequence, you can go and choose Render In and Out. We don't have an in and out point, so it defaults the whole clip. So this takes a moment or two, but what's happening here is it's processing and it's doing all of the keyframes, and it's kind of making a mini movie in the background of your file, so it can actually play a little bit more smoothly, and that way you can kind of see how it looks. All right, so let's see how this looks. Nice. So the little fast, those little fast blips are meant to be fast. Because it's, again, an intro. All right. This is timed nicely to the music. This has keyframed animation. All right. So we got to do a few more things to just kind of really crank up the style on this project here. So the next thing I'd like you to do is we're going to, we've done keyframing. We fine-tuned the timing with rolling. And now we're just going to add some effects. You could do effects one by one. So if you really wanted, if you wanted to play around with effects, you can go click on any little piece, and I'm going to go to the effects tab in my project window, and I'm going to select the effects folder, and there's a couple things to play with. There are hundreds of effects here in Premiere to use. Just to kind of point you to two folders that you can play around with is Distort and Stylize. Those have some pretty dramatic effects here. So you can go ahead and play. Like for a mosaic, it'll make it look a little more pixely. That's a little bit too much. So if I wanted to adjust that, I can go to Effect Controls, and I have a horizontal block. So maybe I'll do, instead of 10, I'll do 50, right? And maybe bottom, I'll do 50 as well. That's a little bit more pixely. Or I can do like 112 and 112. And that kind of changes the video game resolution, right? So I can still kind of see it, but it looks more like a game. Notice there's a stopwatch here. You can keyframe effects. I'm not going to get into that right now. If you don't like a certain effect, you can just click on that mosaic or whatever effect is in there, and you can delete it. Okay. What I do want to show you is I want to show you how to do an effect for the whole project. So this timeline in here, I have a project here. I want to make an effect. Instead of doing it frame or clip by clip, I want to do an adjustment layer. Okay. And what that will allow me to do is it'll allow me to, the adjustment layer is a filter kind of getting blanketed across every single clip. So the way to do that is, number one, you have to go back to your project window. Your project window in the lower left-hand corner, and you got to find that tab. Whoops, didn't want to do that. Let's cancel that. There you go. Got to double click on it to go back. So double click on click once on your project window, and then you're going to go up top to where it says File, New, Adjustment Layer. If this is grayed out, you got to make sure that you're in your project window over here on the left. File, New, Adjustment Layer. What this does is it gives you a new piece of like blank footage. It's like a layer of cellophane going on top of whatever you're using. So I'm going to take this little adjustment layer that we just made, and I'm going to plop it on top, stretch it over. And now, whatever I do to this adjustment layer will affect every single thing. The effect I really want you to play with is color correction, because that'll really stylize your stuff really fast. But just to kind of show you what the effect layer does, remember how we did mosaic? Now when I do mosaic, it will do it for all of them. So if I go down here to my effects tab, and I hit mosaic, I plop it on top, now every single clip is in this pixely thing. And if I change it, it changes it for all of it. So 1, 1, 2. And then 1, 1, oops, not 7, 1, 1, 2. There we go. So now everything is pixely, okay? But I don't want to do mosaic. Another fun thing to play with is color. So if you double click on this adjustment layer and then go to color, the tab up top, and if you don't see it, it's under Window, Workspace, Color. And one thing I was showing you is you can use, as you go to basic color, you can make it all black and white, or you can make it super saturated, which are both fun to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull down the saturation, and then I'm going to go down to here where it says color wheels. Okay, and I've kind of explained the science behind it. I'm not going to do that in this video. But with these color wheels, I'm going to make the highlights gold. Look at that. I'm getting this nice yellowy tint. This MA gold color to it. And a little bit more yellow. There you go. And with the shadows, I'm going to make them maroon. Right, so I have this nice yellow and gold and slightly orangish tint. If I want to, and then the midtones I can kind of balance out. That looks kind of MA colorish. And I can amp up, if I want to amp up something or amp down something, I can kind of make the colors darker or brighter in those zones. Now I have this nice MA look to it. A very stylized intro with one simple adjustment layer. Okay, last, we got to let them know what show we're watching. All right, notice it's getting a little stuttery every once in a while, so I'm probably going to render, but not right now. There you go. And then I want MA Today coming down right here at that last little blip, right here. Okay, so I'm going to hit T for text. I'm going to type right here, T. I'm going to type in M, make sure there's a hyphen, A, space, capital T-O-D-A-Y, exclamation point. I'm going to highlight everything, Command A, or just hide everything. I'm going to go back to editing. And now under my effects control, with this selected, I can change my text. Remember, text gets hidden under this little tiny triangle, right? And I'm going to change my font to something a little bit fatter. So probably I have a Gotham Ultra I kind of like. Ooh, that looks good right there with white, but let's go better. Let's give it that MA maroon and gold. So let's go to fill. Let's make our gold very gold. Boop. Right, and that's kind of hard to read with all the yellow, so I'm going to do a stroke in the opposite color, MA maroon. So a stroke in the opposite, and then to make your size of your outline a little thicker, there's this little number by it. And now that's popping. So whenever you're using text, have it there. So now I'm going to stretch this out to the whole entire sting. And now I have MA Today, and I'm going to reposition it somewhere over here. I'm going to make the size a little bit bigger. Whoops. I'm going to center justify it because that might have an effect. And I can also just grab these edges here if I wanted to map these out. There's other settings you could do. Oops, and grab that. And I'm going to put it right there. Something like that. Now we're looking really stylized. All right, last thing is the text is just kind of, not the last thing, but one more thing. The text is just kind of popping right on top. So guess what we're going to do? We're going to keyframe it. So once again, I have this selected. I'm going to go to the very first frame up here. And this is where it's going to start to appear. And I'm going to select, I'm still on my text. I'm going to hit position and scale. Boop, boop. And I'm going to pull this up. So where it says position, I'm now going to grab the Y coordinate, the second one, and pull it up. And so then I'm going to move it a few frames, not at the end though. I'm going to move a few frames down. And now I'm going to bring it down so it's underneath them like so. And notice it gave me one thing. I'm going to give it another point right here because after they start to fade, I'm going to want MA Today to start zooming and getting bigger. So now I'm going to go to the end now. And I'm going to make scale a little bit bigger. Even bigger. And I'm going to move it up. You know what? I actually want it to start a little smaller. So to navigate between your keyframes, I didn't show you this earlier. There's a little triangle. Apologies for the cat meowing. I'm going to make MA Today a little smaller here. And that means I'm going to have to make it a little bit lower. And then one more time, I'm just going to type in 78. Boom. So it stays small. So now MA Today pops in at the bottom. And it gets bigger with the black background. That's going to be a nice little fade. All right. Speaking of fades, last thing. If you're having trouble with animation, a good substitute that would actually really help as well is also video transitions. So video transitions are right here, right underneath video effects, and you can play with a lot of them. So the basic one is cross dissolve. So at the beginning here, I can right click, and I can choose apply default transition. You have to right click on the edge. So I'm going to do the same thing on this one at the end here. I'm going to right click and choose apply default transition. So let's see how that looks. Good. Now if I want to fade out quicker or longer, I can double click on that transition. It's 1 second long. So if I want it to quick out faster and be a shorter transition, I have to put frames in there. So 12 frames long. So instead of 1 second, it's 12 frames. This one, if I wanted to fade in longer or slower, I can make it 200. That's a 2 second long fade. So now it's a very, right? Other effects, you can have a lot of fun. There's probably 50 transitions. You can try like cube spin, which goes like that. And if you wanted to customize your transition, you can double click on it. And you have different options here. You can make it go up and down rather than left to right. You can change the speed. You can do all sorts of stuff. So maybe I wanted to do a vertical cube spin. So you can do whatever you want. You can have keyframes and transitions to have a lot of movement. But if you're having a lot of trouble with keyframes, a good way to simulate similar movement is stuff like the push slide, which would kind of replicate this idea of, let me put it right there, and maybe right there. So this idea of kind of making it slide out of the way, right? And again, if you start getting stuttering, you're going to go back to sequence, render in and out. All right. So while that's rendering, let's review everything that we've done, right? I've gotten my song. I've gotten my visual assets. I set up my sequence. I added and marked the song and really paid attention to the timing of the song. Then I placed the footage and the pictures with the focus on the music. Then I fine-tuned it. I fixed everything. I kind of readjusted everything with the rolling tool. That's hotkey N, or it's the third tool down. It's right here, the rolling tool. Very handy tool to kind of fine-tune your cuts. Then we keyframed our pictures. We made our pictures animated and moved them. Then we added visual effects. That's under the video effects tab. And we did a adjustment layer with color correction. And then we added the text. And then I kind of reviewed keyframing. You can keyframe filters. Anything with a stopwatch, you can make change over time. All right, and now my cat is anxious for us to end. So we will end with one last thing, exporting. Before you export, it's always a good idea to watch it one more time. So I'm going to hit save. I've rendered. I'm going to watch it one more time. Take a breath. I want to do one more push slide with that strength and diversity. Right? That's it. So I'm just going to take that push slide and do one more with strength and diversity. One more there. And just kind of really get that movement going. You know what? Let me just do... Let's go nuts here. Let's just go, right? It's an intro. Let's go crazy. One more. Bam. All right. So now, let's see how that works. Nice. I like it. Yeah. Lots of craziness, right? So fine tune what you want, get it just right, make it sure it's the beats are tight, everything's good. And then when you're ready, you're going to export it. So you hit save one more time. When you're exporting, make sure that your sequence is highlighted. If you have anything else highlighted, it's not going to show. And then I'm going to go to File. I'm going to hit Export Media. See? Notice it's grayed out. That's because my project window is highlighted, not my sequence window. So now my sequence window is highlighted. File, Export Media. There you go. You should only have to do one change, H.264. So make sure the format is H.264. Everything else should kind of stay the same. And the last thing you're going to click on is where it says Rough Cut. So we're going to click on it where it says Rough Cut, and we're going to change this to, and I tell you what to call it right here, 21 DL Intro. So 2021, that's the year. 21 _ DL for distance learning intro .mp4. Hit save. I hit export. And notice it does one bar really fast. That's the audio. It's cleaning up the audio. And the second bar is going to take anywhere from 1 to 5 minutes, depending on your computer, how much you did, how many filters you used, all that stuff. Okay. And now that it's exported, I can open this up on my desktop. And I can show you my time right here. Whoop. And that's ready to turn in. The file you want to turn in is this MP4 right here. So if I was going back to Canvas and I was in my student view and I wanted to submit this, I would hit submit assignment and I turn in that MP4 I exported. If you can't find that MP4, it should end in export. Make sure you go back here, make sure you click sequence, and you file, export. If you can't find that MP4, when you clicked on output name, did you choose your desktop or someplace where you could find it? I forgot to remind you about that. So if you can't find it, that's how you can kind of see where it was directed, or you can export it again. That MP4, you click choose file. So I hit submit assignment, choose file. I click on my MP4, open, and then I hit submit. This will take a little while to upload, depending on your internet connection, and that is it. All right, that's our video. Please email me if you have any questions. Here's everything that you need to know, and I'll see you later.